Welcome to Graham Codrington's Future of Work podcast, where we give you insights into how the world is changing, and practical resources for making sense of it today. My name is Graham Codrington. It's brilliant to have you along on the podcast again. This is full episode 13. I hope you've been enjoying the bonus episodes that we've been including in the podcast over the last few weeks. Those bonus episodes looking at Throw Forward Thursday, jumping into the future and looking at some advance or technology or change in the way that we'll live and work. I'm enjoying putting those together. I hope you're enjoying listening to them. By the way, you might want to go across to YouTube and sign up at my YouTube channel. Some of those videos have got some really cool video supporting evidence. The one last week on jetpacks had some really cool videos behind it. But otherwise, it's great to have you along here in the podcast. And it's been a while since we've had a full episode. Episode 12 feels like, it was more than a month ago. And the reason for that is that my business colleague Busle Dlamini and I have been spending the last 4 to 6 weeks putting together an online course for healthy hybrid teams. And it's really come out brilliantly. We spent a lot of time and effort on it, and I'm really excited that we are launching it now. So if you want more details about that course, it is a video and self-paced learning course. So you sign up for it. The 5 ingredients of a healthy hybrid team are broken up into 4 or 5 short videos each. They're about sort of 10 to 15 minutes each. And then there are some further readings and self-reflection questions and activities for you and your team to do. For more information, just go along to the resources page on my website. So that's grahamcodrington.com/resources, or just go to grahamcodrington.com and click on the resources button. You'll see there's actually a whole lot of online courses available. Some are free, some are cheap, some will cost you a little bit more. I suppose it depends on the value and the depth that we go into on the course. But the Healthy Hybrid Teams course is now available. Go and check it out if it's of value to you. So that's what I've been doing for the last little while, but now we're going to get back into a kind of weekly format of continuing on the podcast of going through our Healthy Hybrid Teams model. To bring you back up to speed, if it's been a while, over the last 20 years, our company, Tomorrow Today Global, has worked in a virtual environment. We've never paid rentals, and we've worked all around the world, had hundreds of employees and people working for us over that 20-year period. We're not a huge company. We've never had hundreds at a time. That's hundreds over a 20-year period. So we're a small organization. We know that. But nevertheless, we have been able to operate without offices, be completely virtual, and have a team spread across time zones and continents. And we know that it works. We've also spent time doing serious research, linking in to serious research. People like Professor Nick Bloom at Stanford, who's one of the world's leading researchers and experts on virtual and remote working, looking at companies. Good examples would be WordPress, Matt Mullenweg's company that basically they run most of the world's websites. I'm sure you know the name. And they've got thousands of employees and never had any offices. They have been virtual by design. And he's come up with a model that makes that work. We'll in fact be talking a little bit about WordPress in a later episode. Other companies have done it as well. Ricardo Semler is a Brazilian businessman. He runs a family business, third generation. I think it's into the fourth generation now, called Semco. They're a massive industrial conglomerate with 24-hour factories, and they've built flexibility into the system. Not quite work from home, of course, in their factories, but they've built flexibility into the system. And then there are motivational models like Dan Pink's model. There are psychological models like Professor Brokenleg's Circle of Courage, and so on and so on and so on. So we talked about that a number of episodes back. You can go and have a listen to that episode if you're interested in the research. And in fact, you know what? In the show notes of this podcast, I'll put a link to a private video that I recorded for a client, and they've given me permission to just share it. And then we actually included the content in the online course that we did. So you get a sense of a flavor of the course as well. But it's a free video, even though it's hidden. I'll put the link in the show notes so that if you're interested in all of the research we've done, you can go and have a look at it. To get to the show notes, again, just go to grahamcodrington.com, my website. Look for the podcasts and videos menu option and scroll down to episode 13 of the podcast. So every episode of the podcast, we put show notes with links to additional readings and videos and other resources to help you. Right. So the model that we came up with, all of this research, all of this experience that we've got, we came up with a model. Well, in fact, I say model, but it isn't a model. It's 5 ingredients that are essential for building a healthy hybrid team. The reason I say ingredients rather than a model is this is not a leadership competency model. It's not a leadership framework or an HR framework. It's not a new approach to how you develop teams or team dynamics. What it is whatever models you already use. You don't have to replace those models. But we think of our ingredients as kind of adding a little bit of extra spice and sauce. These 5 areas that we've identified, if you focus on them, if you have, I would suggest you have a meeting with your team once a week and take 5 minutes of that team meeting to talk about your culture, to talk about becoming more healthy as a team. And if on a rotating basis, each one of those segments is themed with one of these 5 ingredients, you will build a healthier hybrid team. And obviously what we're trying to do on this podcast is go further than just giving you the 5 headlines, but actually give you ideas, give you examples, kind of lead you in a direction of what other people are doing successfully. So that's what we're doing. The 5 ingredients, if you're jumping into the podcast now and you haven't listened back to the previous episodes, just to remind you, the 5 ingredients are building a sense of belonging, a sense of being connected and part of a team. It's an obvious place to start if you're trying to build a good team. Secondly, it's a sense of mastery. And mastery is about each individual's confidence and competence to do what they have to do, to contribute to the team, so that every member of your team has the skill set, they've got the resources that they need in order to be able to make the contribution you need them to make. The third area is autonomy, and that's our giving people independence, agency, and demonstrating trust that they will do what they need to do without being micromanaged and checked in on all the time. So that's autonomy. And when we get to autonomy, which we will do this year, I promise, we've got another 3 or 4 episodes on mastery, and then we'll get into the autonomy piece. That's the piece that really I'm excited about, because once you get over the initial insights around autonomy, which are really valuable. There's a deep insight at the heart of autonomy, which I think might really be one of the secrets to unlocking the future of work. Should I keep that as a surprise for you? No, I can tell you now. I think it's about outcomes-based workplaces. I think that where we find ourselves now at the beginning of the 2020s, I think as we look ahead to the rest of this decade, one of the single biggest changes that is going to take place in the world of work is the shift towards an outcomes-driven workplace. But more of that later. So that's the third area, autonomy. The fourth area is generosity, which is not just about whether you give money to charity and you're generous to the community around you. It is that. Working for a company that is generous and gives to charity and community is obviously motivational, but it's a lot more than that. It's kind of the flip side of mastery and autonomy, because if you're only focusing on mastery and autonomy, you could create a really powerful team, a group of individuals who all say, I'm good at what I do, I know what I need to contribute, and leave me alone to do it, which might get the job done, but isn't a team. And so if you need a team to get the job done, then a spirit of generosity between the team members is absolutely essential. And this has got to do with things like empathy and care. If somebody's having a bad day, how do you engage with them? It's got to do with support and assistance. So if somebody needs a little bit of help to get over a hump or something like that, what happens? And it's got to do with mentoring and reverse mentoring, which is about how we develop each other. And I suppose it's also got to do a little bit with knowledge transfer. How do we empower and enrich and upgrade our colleagues, not see them as competitors that we fight against? So that's generosity. And then the final piece of the puzzle, the final ingredient, is purpose. And when we say purpose, people immediately think of vision, mission, values, purpose. And this is about us all having to get out of bed in the morning and achieve our company's purpose. Well, it isn't that. It's exactly the opposite of that. In fact, we believe that one of the key ingredients to building a healthy team, and especially building a healthy team in a hybrid environment, is that the company, the organization, the leaders in the teams actually are focused on the individuals in their teams and helping those individuals to achieve their personal life purposes. And obviously, you've got to get the balance right. We don't want our company being involved in every aspect of our lives, and we need some barriers and distance between our work and our personal lives. However, those barriers are a lot more porous than they used to be. And I think that what also needs to be a little bit more porous, a little bit more overlapping and interlocking, is us all living to achieve our life purposes, and working in places that help us achieve our life purposes. So maybe to put it this way, we need to stop living in a world where we organize our lives around our work, and rather flip that around, where our lives are our primary focus, and part of our lives is our work, and we can fit our work in around what's going on in our lives. I think if we get it right, work will be a joy, and we'll want to give our best to work because it'll make our lives better. But more of that later. Right, so I've taken a long time to kind of just overview again the model, but maybe the way I've phrased it for you has been helpful again to just get those 5 ingredients in your head. Maybe you needed a catch up because it's been a while since we've talked about this, or maybe you're jumping into the podcast here and that was a good enough introduction for you. So what we're doing in this episode 13, again, if you want to see some of the show notes for this episode, there's going to be quite a lot to share with you this week, because we're looking at mastery. And one of the things that I am seeing across our clients, across the board, across industries and across the world, when it comes to this issue of mastery in a hybrid world. One of the biggest things that's causing a headache, that's causing people to not be able to do their best or to give their best, is that they don't have adequate technology. And this comes in at 4 basic levels. And there are 4 ways in which we need to help our colleagues, the people in our team, to be able to update and improve and upgrade their technology. So obviously it's about mobile technology, because it's about people needing to be able to work from anywhere. They might not be working from home, but they're not working at the office. They might be working at a coffee shop, or they might be at a hot desk where they're moving around. So we're probably talking about laptops or tablets. And then, of course, people have got mobile phones to augment that mobility as well. But there are 4 areas that companies need to ensure that their staff are actually set up properly. The first is actual connectivity. Do people have enough data? Is the data connection they've got adequate? Is it fast enough? And are there no constraints about that? Now, in certain countries, this is not an issue. Everybody's got access to great internet, and you don't even have to think about it. And it's cheap and it's easy to get, and you can kind of just leave it up to the employees. But to be honest, in most countries around the world, and I include countries that are technically very developed, America is top of my list, actually the connectivity that most people have is very spotty. There are parts of America that have shocking connectivity. There are parts of Asia that have shocking connectivity. There are parts of Europe where connectivity is quite expensive. And obviously in developing nations, Brazil and India and across Africa and in some parts of China and Southeast Asia, this might be a really big issue for certain members of your team. So we've just got to make sure that everybody's got as good a connection as possible and that they can afford the data and the data usage. To be honest, certainly with more senior people in the business, and unless they live on some remote like farmland area where there's no possibility of getting good data, nobody should really have an excuse. As I say, especially for the senior people in your business, nobody should be saying, well, I don't really want to switch my camera off because, I don't have a good data connection. That's ridiculous. We've spoken in previous episodes of the podcast that ideally you want people to have their cameras on because you want people to be able to connect, and part of connecting is to see other people and to be visually there. Certainly when you're connecting with clients, you want to be visible, you want to be seen. Even if the clients are keeping their cameras off, you want to have your camera on with one of your logos sitting prominently either in the background behind you or in an overlay on your screen. So, should be no excuses to say I can't have my camera on or I'm glitching because of data. Connectivity, first issue. The second thing is you've got to make sure everybody's got the hardware they need. So if they've got ancient laptops or ancient phones that just can't handle the technology, don't handle some of the high-end graphics that you might need that I'm about to talk about, well, then you've got to update your computers, and you might want to put a minimum specification in if you force your employees to buy their own hardware, or you allow them to buy their own hardware. You might want to put some minimum specifications in. Otherwise, as a business, this is a cost. And you just need to make sure that you allocate money to this cost so that you can ensure that everybody has got the technology that they need. Now, the hardware is not just a computer or a phone, because if we're going to spend a lot more time in front of cameras, then there are three other things that you need. The first is if we're doing a lot of dialing in, and if this is either for team meetings or and maybe even more so if you are connecting a lot with clients over the internet and dialing in to clients, then you absolutely have to upgrade your audio. Audio is the most important thing in video, if that doesn't sound too crazy. But you really, really, really have to get your audio right. Think about what happens if you've got a crackly audio, if there's hissing and scratches, if there's lots of background noise. You can handle a buffering video. You can handle a cat walking across the front of the screen or children playing in the background. You can handle that visually, but you cannot handle that audio. Your brain just explodes. Some psychologist, some physiologist will explain why, but audio is the most important thing. You have to have an external mic. Let me be very practical here. Your microphones on your phones and your microphones on your laptops are designed to pick up as much noise as possible. They are designed for you to be able to sit around the laptop and have 5 people talking. But then at the same time, we hear everybody creaking their chairs, everybody stirring their coffee, everybody coughing. So you have to have a dedicated microphone. It could be a lapel microphone. It could be an external desk microphone. It could be a headset microphone, whatever you're comfortable with. But don't skimp. Spend as much money as you can on getting a really good microphone and get somebody who knows about microphones to help you. So don't just go into Amazon and buy the cheapest, most discounted special microphone that they're promoting. Speak to somebody who can help you, who knows a little bit about microphones. Go to a computer shop and ask the person for their best microphone. Or just do some research on reviews. I'm not here to help you to make that choice, but I'm just telling you to spend as much money as you can on a microphone. The second thing you need, if you've got a little bit more money left, is you need good lighting. And what you preferably need is 4 lights. Okay, so these don't have to be super expensive lights. They can be those little ring lights that cost you $20, and you might even be able to buy them in a pack of 4 for $50. They really are cheap. And the reason you need 4 is you need 2 lights that sit next to you, so out of view of your camera, but you kind of, if you stretch your arms out wide while you're sitting at your desk, you should be able to touch each of them on the side of you, and they're facing backwards, lighting up whatever background you use. Then in front of you, looking ahead of you, is your camera and your computer. And at 45 degrees on either side of your camera, facing your face, so pointing inwards in sort of a big triangle focused on your face, you need 2 other lights lighting you up. Now, the reason you need that is because you need your camera to be able to differentiate between your background and yourself. And to do that, you need to light your background and yourself separately, so that there's no shadows behind you on your background, and also that the lighting is slightly different. That will really help your cameras. So it won't cost you a lot, but there's a little bit of setup to go through to set your lighting up. If you've got a lot of money and if you're trying to do this slightly more professionally, then you don't want to just use ring lights. You want to use proper LED lights, and you can get a studio softbox and so on. Again, I'm not going to go into the full details now. If you are wanting to spend a little bit more money and do it a little bit more professionally, I highly recommend you get somebody to assist you, somebody who knows what they're doing, who would even maybe come to your office, to your studio, to your home, and help you set up exactly where the lights should be. What I'll do is I'll put a photograph of my studio into the show notes and highlight it for you and show you what I've done. Now, if you've still got a little bit of money left over, the third thing you should buy is an external camera. If you're using your phone as your camera. As long as you've got a phone you bought in 2020 or later, you've got a really, really good phone. Any one of the smartphones from Samsung to Apple, from Huawei to whatever, have pretty much got great phones, great phone cameras. But most of us can't use our phones as a camera. We need our phones as phones. So you need an external webcam. It doesn't have to be hugely expensive, but again, not the El Cheapo one. Or you could get yourself a proper external camera. And you then set that up. If you've got a proper external camera, you'll probably also need a little HDMI connector. It's called a cam link that connects your camera, converts the camera signal into a signal your computer can understand, and then you plug it into your computer, and that becomes the camera that you then use for your Zoom and team meetings and so on. Now, so those are the three things you need: audio, lights, and camera. In that order as well, depending on how much you've got to spend. There is then one fourth thing that you can do, and that would be to just set up a really cool background behind you. Now, some of you have got a nice background in your office or someplace in your room, in your house, that you sort of set up with a bookshelf and some plants and so on, and you've curated that quite nicely behind you, and that will work. The other option is to just have a blank wall behind you, and then you can use a virtual screen. Or you can go super pro and you can put a green screen behind you, and you can either buy a little fold-up green screen that either flips out and has got a little stand and is easy to set up. I've got one that just clips on the back of my chair, for example. Or you can actually put a more permanent green screen up on a wall. Again, I'll show you a photograph in the show notes of my studio where I literally bought a green sheet and I've stuck it to the wall. And I'll point it out to you in the photograph. I've literally stuck it up with masking tape, so it's not like it's been professionally done, but it's good enough. If you do that, if you have a blank screen behind you or a green screen, then you can use a virtual background. So Teams and Zoom and other programs allow you to put your slides, to put images, pictures, videos in your background, or you can use additional software. If you're on Windows, there's a quite complicated one, but it works well, called OBS. In Apple, I would recommend Ecamm Live. Or on both Windows and Apple, the entry-level version, which is really, really good, is called, and wait for it, it's called Yeah, exactly. It's a ridiculous name to try and tell people. It's mmhmm.app.ap. That's the website, right? Fantastic. App. mmhmm.app. Again, I'll put it in the show notes as a link to you. And that's great software, easy to use, easy to understand, does everything you'll need it to do. That kind of creates a virtual background for you, and allows you to also put what they call overlays, which is like on TV where you've got your title running across the bottom of the screen and so on. It's very easy to set up, and there's some wonderful YouTube videos to help you to learn how to do it. So that's a little bit of hardware, a little bit of tech to buy, and then some software options. The third thing that you might want to do with your development of mastery of a virtual or hybrid team is to look at apps that will help you to work. So email's going to kill us all, isn't it? So maybe the simplest app to use is WhatsApp. You shift things across to a messaging app and create messaging groups. If you're doing that, you might as well start thinking about using a proper connectivity and team app like Slack or Asana or Monday. There's lots of different options. And just have a look at apps that help you to connect with a remote team more effectively, to not overwhelm your message box, because that's what happens when you're out of the office and you now need to just get insights and info from different people, it can become your inbox can get overwhelmed very easily. So you need apps that help you to manage that. And as you're starting to think of apps, you might discover other apps that help you run your meetings better, that help you organize yourselves better. Basically, this third category is I'm just saying you've got to be thinking of apps. You've got to be thinking of little productivity tools, connection tools, engagement tools, communication tools that are going to help you and experiment and work out what's best for you. Which leads finally to my fourth and final point, which is that you've probably got to go and have a fairly stern talk to the IT department. This might not be true in your company, and you might be somebody from IT, so apologize if I'm about to step quite hard on your toes. But most of my clients, IT is a department that says no. IT is the bunch of people who just say, no, that can't be done, or our policies are, and then tell you that you can't do what it is that you want to do. Well, that's ridiculous. IT are not in charge. IT are not the boss. IT are a support service for the rest of the business. IT are an enabling function for the business. Unless you actually are an IT company producing IT products, IT is an enabler. And if IT refuse to enable you, they should be fired. IT shouldn't be allowed to turn around and say, no, you can't do that, when the business says we would like to do something with our technology. Most IT departments that say no are just lazy. They don't want to go through the effort of setting up a new policy, a new framework, new IT systems. They want the most locked down, the most protected, and the easiest to manage IT system, whether or not it makes your life easier or not. Now, I'm painting a pretty bleak picture, and again, apologies. If you're in IT and you're doing better than that, well, then I'm not talking about you. But IT really has to step up the game in the 2020s and become much more of an enabling function. And so the fourth thing you have to do in order to make sure that your remote and hybrid team is enabled to have mastery, is enabled to deliver quality content and make a great contribution. You've got to get your IT right, and IT has to enable people to do that. Make it easy for them, not hard. Make it quick for them, not long. And make it a joy rather than a pain. So, if you want to improve mastery in your virtual and hybrid team, you have to focus on ensuring that everybody in your team has got their tech right, has got their technology right, and is properly tech enabled. Thinking about it now, there might be a fifth area, and that is training. Have you trained people? Have you given them enough support and training to get all of these things right? I hope you have. I hope you do, because if people are struggling with their technology, they're going to struggle to make a contribution. Their mastery is going to drop. Their sense of contribution is going to fade. They're not going to be great team members. That's going to reduce their engagement with the team. It's a disaster. And tech might be what's holding an otherwise brilliant team member, an otherwise brilliant colleague, might be the thing that's actually holding them back. As you think about your team, maybe I've just made sense of one or two of your team members for you. They're brilliant, but where have they gone? They've disappeared into a tech black hole. You can help them out of it. I hope that you do. Right. Thank you very much for joining the Future of Work podcast. I hope this has been a useful episode for you. As always, I'd love your feedback. And we now have a new way for you to interact with us. If you have any questions about the future of work that you'd like me to answer, if there's any issue that you'd like me to deal with, or if there's any feedback that you'd like to give me about the podcast and the work that I do, just go to the website askaboutthefuture.com. All one word, askaboutthefuture.com, and you'll see lots of ways that you can interact with our team at Tomorrow Today and with me in particular. Don't forget that there are lots of resources available at my website. That's grahamcodrington.com. Go and look at the show notes for this episode in particular. This is episode 13 under the podcasts and videos section. Don't forget, under the resources section at grahamcodrington.com, there's information about my online courses, including the fantastic Healthy Hybrid Teams online course. And then finally, if you're finding these podcasts valuable, please share them with friends. Let other people know about them. Rate us on your favorite podcast platform of choice. We'd love to get more people listening, and we'd love to get more people building healthier hybrid teams. I'll see you next time when we will be talking about ongoing development. Learning and development, massive online open courses, how to keep learning in a virtual and a hybrid environment. I'll see you next time. Go well.